Hello, hello, welcome back. So today we're going to be focusing on our balance. Balance is a fun thing, can be fun, but balance is just interesting in the fact that it's different every time that you try it. So it's definitely something you can build up and work towards gaining better balance, but it also varies a lot depending on just how our body's doing that day. So you'll often find balance can be different on one side or the other. Just like we have a stronger hand, we tend to have a stronger leg and side of the body that we use more. So you might find as we start to try things on one side at a time, that one side might be easier than the other. But balance plays a big role in all that we do throughout our day, throughout our lives. So we're gonna work on that today. So if you're ready, we're gonna begin standing. So go ahead and find your space. Make sure you have some space to move around you. If you have a block, that might be helpful as we start to get into it. Just the block kind of helps bring the floor up to you rather than falling down to the floor. If you don't have a block, no worries at all, but just an option. So feel free as we begin here to just kind of walk around on your mat a little bit. You can try walking on those toes as you lift the heels away from the floor, or you might start to walk on the heels, lifting the toes away from the floor. Just first beginning to wake up the ankles, wake up the feet, the toes. You might hear some snap, crackle, pops throughout the feet and the ankles here, but also just a good way to start to stretch them and strengthen. So feel free to just kind of walk around on your mat, on your space. If you're seated, you can also do this with your feet on the floor. And maybe each time you lift those toes, try creating a little space in between each one of them. Even if that doesn't physically happen, I know not everyone can physically bring their toes out, but just try to think about it, visualizing it, I guess. And as we start to bring our feet to a neutral spot, whether they're hip width apart or further or closer, you might try rolling onto the outer edges of your feet, get a little stretch for the outside of those ankles, and then maybe rolling onto the inner edges of those feet. Not so comfortable there. And just try a few times side to side. And then the last thing we'll do here to kind of stretch and wake up the ankles and those feet is maybe try lifting that left heel off the floor. So you're just on those left toes and also on the pad or the ball of your foot. And start to roll across the pad of that foot, almost like it's an arch, like a rainbow. Just grounding down into the pad of that foot as you move side to side across it. So you're kind of shifting your weight from like the pinky toe side, cross those toes into the big toe, but just below it. And the knee and the ankle might follow. You might feel some little hard spots along the way. You might not. And then when you're ready, you can lower that heel down and let's try the other side, the other foot. Lifting that right heel as you come up onto the pad of the foot, and then slowly just starting to roll side to side. Alrighty, when you're ready, go ahead and bring both heels back to the floor. Let's take a nice full breath in. You might lift those shoulders up towards those ears and a long breath out. Awesome, and then a next breath in, maybe lifting the arms all the way up if that feels okay on the shoulders. Hands can come to that heart center as we breathe out. And once again, let's inhale. Maybe as you reach out, try reaching back a little bit with those thumbs, all the way up until you feel those hands connect, and then exhaling them down to your heart center. One more breath like that as we breathe in fully, and then all the way out. All right, let's interlace those fingers. We're going to turn those palms facing up, lifting those palms up towards the ceiling, and then on the breath out, grounding down into those feet as we lift up through the torso and then over to the side. Almost like there was a little wall right next to you that you were trying to reach up and over. And then we can inhale back up through center, and exhaling, let's reach up and over to the opposite side. Inhaling all the way up, maybe a few more times each side, just slowly moving. Trying to lengthen and lift each time you come back through center. And inhaling back up. And exhaling to the opposite side. Go ahead and come all the way up, releasing those hands. And just swinging them out. Okay, next breath in, we're going to lift those arms back up. And then on the breath out, hands can move through our heart center as we hinge at those hips. Go ahead and bring hands all the way to the floor, dropping the chin towards the chest. And just letting yourself hang out here for a few breaths. You might move that head side to side, or you can try moving it forward and back. Maybe you gently sway those hips side to side as we start to wake up the back of the legs. And then slowly coming to center, go ahead and bring both hands all the way to the floor. We'll step these feet back and then go ahead and just lower right down to those knees. So bringing those hands underneath those shoulders and the knees underneath those hips. So finding all fours here on the mat. And just like we did with our toes, trying to create space in between the fingers. So we have a nice base of support here. We want to start to engage through our core. That's really going to help in our balance. So try to draw up through the navel as we slightly tuck those hips. And think about drawing those hands towards the knees and the knees towards the hands. Even though they're not actually moving, just finding that little isometric hold, really engaging and strengthening through that core. Now we want to try to keep that engagement through that core as we lift our right leg and bring it back behind us. So try to have those toes pointing down, the heel reaching back away from you, and then you can even engage your thigh to help extend and lengthen through that leg. And you can always stay right here, or if you'd like to add that arm, you can reach the left arm forward. You can bring fingertips to the floor, or they can extend out in front of you. Just finding a little spinal balance here. As you inhale, reaching forward through the fingertips. As you exhale, draw up through the belly, reaching back through the heel. And then go ahead and lower everything back down. Feel free to take a few circles with that right wrist. I know it can be a lot on those wrists. And then go ahead and bring both hands back to the floor. Re-engage through that core, drawing up through the navel, and then maybe reaching that left leg back. Toes are pointing down, engaging through that left thigh, through the left glute, and then you might reach that right arm forward. You might leave fingertips and toes on the floor. You can always be here, or you can lift and extend forward. Always an option. Inhale as you reach forward through the arm. Exhale as you draw the shoulder back. Try to draw up through the navel and back through the heel. Go ahead and lower down. And you can roll out that opposite wrist. All right, both hands back to the floor. We're going to alternate side to side a few times. So on that breath in, let's try lifting one leg and the opposite arm. Inhaling as we extend, and then exhaling, try to mindfully lower down. Inhaling as we reach and extend, opposite side. Exhale, slowly lowering back down, so we're not just letting that leg and the arm fall. Exhaling as we lower. Inhaling, opposite side. Exhaling, lower. As we move both sides of the body like this at the same time, we're just strengthening that connection between the two hemispheres of the brain, which often gets weaker or lost when we're going through a lot of stress or trauma. A few more times each side here. You can just keep that gaze right down on the floor. Noticing that core as you inhale and lift, and then exhaling as it contracts and you lower back down. Let's try one more time each side. Awesome. Go ahead and bring everything back down. Feel free to sit back on towards those heels. Arms can extend forward into your child's pose. Or you might try turning your palms facing up in this child's pose here, allowing those shoulders to open a little bit more, and just taking a few breaths. Noticing where in your torso you might feel any kind of movement as you breathe here. And then as you feel ready, go ahead and bring those palms back to the mat. We'll slowly begin to lift our hips, tuck our toes, and then let's reach those hips back and then up to our downward dog. You might walk out those heels here if that feels okay through the back of those legs. Bending one knee and then the other as you continue to lift those hips up high, especially through that extended leg. And then let's turn that gaze forward in between those hands. We're going to step those feet 1 foot at a time all the way to the front of our mats, coming into your forward fold, and then let's inhale, halfway lift. You might draw those shoulders down and back as we do so to find that long spine, and then drawing up through the navel. Exhaling as we fold back over those legs. Let's find a nice deep bend in those knees, so we use our legs to help us stand. And we're going to inhale all the way up to stand. And then exhaling, hands can lower down to our heart center. Stepping just our right foot to the back. Just coming right into a high lunge here. And let's wake up those legs a little bit. As we breathe out, you might start to bend into this front knee. This back knee might soften as that knee lowers down towards the floor as well. And then as we inhale, maybe we straighten both legs. And then exhaling, go ahead and bend those knees down towards the floor. And then inhaling as those legs straighten. Just 2 more with that breath. Exhaling as we soften. Inhale, grounding down into that front heel to help us lift. And 1 more like that. Let's inhale all the way up. Let's lift those arms all the way up with us. And as we exhale, we're going to bring our hands to our heart and we're going to shift our weight into this front foot. Now the back toes, they might stay on the floor here, but most of our weight is in this front leg. So noticing that shift in weight, keeping a little micro bend in that standing leg, that left leg, the left knee. And you might start to lift and lower that back foot. The toes might just lift an inch off the floor. They might lift a foot off the floor. Totally up to you. Just 3 times with that breath as you inhale and lift and exhale and lower. 1 more time. And exhale, go ahead and step all the way back. Lifting those arms. Inhaling as we rise. And then let's exhale, and we're going to turn and open out to the side to a warrior 2. This front knee pointing right over those middle toes. You can always look down and check on it when needed. And then go ahead and inhale, reverse that warrior. As this left arm lifts high and the right hand lowers down. Slowly, we're going to cartwheel those hands all the way down towards the floor. So if you have a block, here's a good time to reach for that block. Maybe bringing it out in front of that foot and to the outside a little bit. If you're not using a block, same thing. Try to reach for the floor, out in front of the foot, maybe to the outside of the foot a little bit. And this back leg might lift. Now slowly you can stay and hold here, or you might try to come forward and back a few times from this warrior 2. And then inhaling forward, shifting that weight, bringing that left hand towards the floor. Maybe you inhale and come back up, find your balance here, and then exhale, shifting forward. Now if it's too much to reach for the floor, if you feel those shoulders starting to cave in, you might just reach that direction. You definitely don't have to come to the floor. You can just come off that back foot an inch or 2 and then come forward. 1 more time here and let's pause. If you've been pausing this whole time, I'm sorry. We're going to hold for 3 more breaths. This top hand, you can always bring it to that top hip. Again, this leg behind you doesn't have to be very high, but maybe try to extend out through the heel, just like we did when we were on all fours, engaging that right thigh. You might try to turn and open your hips to the side a little bit. 1 more breath. And then we're going to step all the way back. Let's reverse that warrior. And then exhale, go ahead and cartwheel both hands all the way to the floor. Step in this front foot to the back. Let's find our downward dog. Feel free to walk out those heels once again. And then on that next breath in, let's shift that weight forward, finding our plank. Feel free to come to your knees, or you can stay on your toes. And on that breath out, we're going to bend those elbows and lower all the way down to the chest and the belly. Untucking those toes as we inhale and reach that heart forward. And then exhale, see if we can reach the shoulders and the elbows back. Exhaling all the way down. Inhale as we press into those hands. Maybe try tucking the toes, reaching the hips back, and then lifting them up high to find that downward dog once again. Taking a nice full breath in through the nose. Long breath out through the mouth. Turning that gaze forward. When you're ready, you can step or hop your feet to the front of your mat. And then we'll inhale and lift halfway. Exhaling, forward fold. Lifting those hips as the crown of the head releases down towards the floor. Nice deep bend in those knees when you're ready. Very slowly. Rolling your way up to stand. You might bring those arms up with you. And then exhale, sighing it out. All right, let's step our left foot to the back. Let's give that a try on the other side. And let's see if it feels any different. So just coming right into this lunge. Both feet are pointing straight ahead. You might start to find a bend in that front leg. And then as we breathe in, try to draw in and upwards through the pelvic floor, through the belly, through the heart. And then on the breath out, maybe both knees start to bend. It could be a little tiny bend. It could be a deep bend. Totally up to you. And then inhaling as we straighten both legs. Exhaling as they bend and we lower. Inhaling as we lift. So trying to keep that torso still. Shoulders stay right above those hips. We're just bending and straightening those knees, allowing the rest of the body to follow. Just one more time like that. Exhaling as we bend. Let's inhale all the way up. And then we're going to shift our weight forward into this front leg. Slowly coming off of that back foot. Now again, maybe you rest the toes on the floor. Maybe they're hovering. Just try to reach back through those toes. Maybe on an inhale, you might lift the heel a little bit higher. And on an exhale, we lower it back down. Inhaling as we lift. Now I know it feels like all that work is coming from that standing leg. Try to use the core to help with some of that load. Engaging it nice and strong. Flexing through that back leg, especially as it lifts. One more time. And then maybe we step that foot all the way to the back, dropping that back heel to the ground so we can inhale and lift those arms to our warrior one. And then maybe we exhale, opening those arms out to the side, warrior two. Inhale, palms turned up, front palm turns up. We'll reach that right arm up. Let's find our reverse warrior here, just breathing into that side body. And then exhaling as we slowly cartwheel, or not kind of. We're just gonna shift those arms forward and down, reaching that right hand for our block or towards the floor. Maybe it touches the floor, definitely doesn't have to. As that back foot lifts. Now you might stay and hold here and just focus on turning your shoulders and your hips to the side of your room. Or you can come in and out of it. Stepping back, finding that warrior two, and then inhaling forward. Maybe we stay here and just lift the leg. So just find what works for you here, what challenges that balance, but still feels doable. You might fall. Extra points if you fall, means you're trying. But just have fun, kind of explore in this balance. If you are holding, which we might all try to do, and whoa, see, I'm really struggling on this side. If you are holding in that balance, try finding a spot on the floor or the wall that doesn't move. You might stay and hold for 3 more breaths. Finding that spot to gaze at as you soften that area around your eyes. Helps to kind of calm down those shaky legs, whatever else might be going on. Okay, when you feel ready, maybe step all the way back with that left foot. Go ahead and just reach that right arm up to that reverse warrior one more time. And then exhale, go ahead and cartwheel those hands all the way to the floor. We'll step back to our downward dog and feel free to walk out those heels. And then let's take a full breath in through the nose. Long breath out through the mouth. And then we'll inhale forward to our plank. Feel free to stay on your toes or lower to those knees. Exhaling as we bend those elbows, maybe lower halfway down, or you can come all the way down. And we'll inhale and lift the heart. Drawing back through those shoulders. And then as you're ready, go ahead and lift back, lowering those knees to the floor, reaching the hips back towards those heels, and give yourself a few breaths here in your child's pose. Trying to bring awareness back to the breath, where you might feel the breath moving in and out of the body. You might feel that breath moving in and out of the rib cage as it expands out to the sides and then comes back in. And then as you feel ready, re-extending those arms, palms come to the floor. We'll slowly lift the knees to tuck the toes and then drawing the hips back once again and then up towards the ceiling, downward dog. Turning that gaze forward. Actually, no, let's turn that gaze back in between those feet. We're going to shift our weight into our left foot, and you might even bring your left foot towards the center of where your feet would be. And then inhaling, we'll lift our right leg. Finding a little 3-leg dog here. A little balance in and of itself. On that breath out, you can bend that right knee, drawing it towards those hands, towards the heart, and then stepping that foot to the front. You can always reach back and help that ankle forward if needed. And then maybe walking those hands out in front of your foot, creating a triangle with your hands and your foot. And very slowly, we're going to shift our weight into that front leg. Slowly lifting that back leg into a 3-point balance here. You can also reach for your block if you're using one. Or hands might hover over the floor, or they might come to the floor. One full breath here. Releasing the chin towards the chest. And then maybe you might start to stand all the way up. You can lower that back foot if needed, or you might try keeping it away from the floor as you bring that left knee out in front. I know my right leg's getting real shaky here. Just continuing to breathe. Feel free to bring those hands to that left knee that's out in front here. You can always reach out for a wall as well for support. So just using what you have around you. All right, let's check in as we lift nice and tall through the crown of the head. Trying to keep that right hip in line with the knee, in line with the shoulder. It likes to come out to the side a lot. So just drawing in and upwards through the core. And then you can stay right here. You can come in and out of it as much as you need to. Or you might try keeping your right hand on the leg and bringing your left hand to your hip. Nice and tall as we breathe in. And then on the breath out, maybe you start to turn your shoulders towards that front knee. Finding a little twist. You might even move your gaze. Sometimes when we turn that gaze, it might challenge the balance a little bit, and that's okay. Just going nice and slow. And then as you're ready, you can slowly untwist, coming back to center. Lowering that foot to the floor if it's not already there, and feel free to move that right leg around that standing leg. You can roll out the ankle, you can circle out the hip. And then we'll bring both feet back to the floor. Checking in for a moment, you might roll those shoulders down and back, lifting nice and tall, finding your strong mountain. And noticing when you breathe. Maybe on the breath in, we lift those arms back up. On the breath out, feel free to hinge at those hips, bending the knees, and find a forward fold. Inhaling, let's lift halfway as the crown of the head extends forward. Try to keep the hips as they are as you exhale and fold back over those legs. Both hands can come to the floor. We'll step those feet back to our downward dog. Maybe you step your right foot to the center of those feet. Inhale, let's lift our left leg all the way up, as high as it wants to go. And then exhaling as you bend that left knee and draw it forward towards those hands, stepping the foot to the front. All right, as we begin here, you might walk those hands forward out in front of that foot, creating a little triangle. You might bring hands to the block. And then shifting that weight into that front foot, slowly begin to lift that back foot. So it could just be one lift and lower, and you just keep alternating or keep lifting and lowering, or you could lift that leg all the way up. It's going to be different for each one of us, so wherever you're at is perfect. Just for one full breath here, as we lift up through that back leg. And then maybe we start to lift that upper body. You can lower that back foot if needed, or you might try to keep the foot lifted as the knee comes around to the front. Bringing those hands to the front of the knee. Softening through those shoulders. You might even be able to relax through that right hip a little bit here. Or you can reach your hand out for the wall or a chair. And maybe you stay here. Or if you'd like to add that twist, you can keep left hand on the knee and the right hand might come to the right hip. Nice full breath in as we lift through that torso, and then on the breath out, slowly turning to one side. You might turn that gaze over that back shoulder. Finding that breath. And then slowly making your way back around to the center. Go ahead and bring both feet back to the floor, and maybe you move that left leg, that standing leg, rolling out the ankle. You can circle out the hip. All right, I know that was a lot on those legs, a lot of balance, one leg in and the other. So let's take a moment to stretch them out as we wind things down. So go ahead and bring both feet back to the floor. Finding a moment as we check in with those legs, with how everything's feeling. And then feel free to inhale and extend the arms up. You might even look up with those hands. And then exhaling, forward fold. As those hands come to the floor, let's step our left foot to the back, and we're going to walk our right foot over to the left side of the mat, lowering down to that right knee. Left knee can lower as well. Maybe you start to walk those hands or that left foot back until you can center those hips. So oftentimes we tend to sit on one side more than the other. If you find that happening, just try to shift that weight a little bit so those hips are in line with one another, so they're centered and even. So even if this right hip is far away from the floor, that's okay. If this bothers your knee, if you're healing that knee joint, you can always do this seated with your ankle crossed over the knee or down on the back. But otherwise, if you are here, we call this pigeon, you're welcome to stay lifted on those hands. Try to bring those shoulders above the hips. Or you can lower slowly down to those forearms. Or if you have a block, you can always bring a block underneath the forehead or underneath the chest. Just allowing the upper body to soften and relax here, through the shoulders, through the gaze. So we can really focus and bring our awareness to where we might feel the stretch. You might feel it in the outer right hip. You might also feel it in the front left hip. Maybe somewhere totally different. And just taking a few breaths here. Giving yourself a chance to kind of notice what's going on and then let go. Or maybe adjust. As you feel ready, slowly bringing those hands back to the floor. You can walk them back in as we lift that upper body. And if it feels okay on that knee behind you, you might try bending that left knee as you bring the foot towards the body. Getting a little stretch for the top of that thigh. You can stay here or you can reach back with that left hand and gently draw that foot a little closer in. And then go ahead and lower that foot back down. Both hands can come to the floor. We'll tuck the toes, lift the knee, and let's step the foot all the way back. Feel free to move that right leg around as you step it back though. You can lift it or you can just walk it out on the mat. And then let's try the other side. So as both feet come back to the floor, you might bend that left knee, drawing it forward towards your hands, and then just step your foot over to the right side of the mat. Lowering that left knee down, trying to adjust with that back leg. So once this knee is down, we want to just leave it right where it's at. So if you need more intensity, just walk in your right foot behind you. If you need less intensity, walking it forward. Trying to center those hips, once again, lining them up with one another. This side might feel different than the other. And you can stay here, lifted on those hands, or you can lower down to your elbows or your forearms or your forehead. Bring in awareness to where you might feel the sensation of a stretch in the body. You might feel the sensation of something different, something holding tight or discomfort, whatever it might be. Just trying to be with that feeling for a moment as you continue to breathe. And as you're ready, you might bring those hands to the floor, walking them back up, lifting tall. If it feels okay on that right knee, you might start and then you notice it doesn't feel okay. You can lower back down. But otherwise, maybe drawing that foot in towards the body. And you can stay here or you can reach that right hand back, helping it get a little bit closer. Now the hips tend to tighten back up as soon as we move. So once you find your space again, see if we can soften down into those hips. Go ahead and let that foot go. Both hands can come back around to the front. We'll tuck the toes, lift the knee, lift those hips, stepping all the way back to that downward dog, and feel free to move that left leg around. And then as you feel ready, bringing both feet back to the floor, go ahead and lower to those knees. We'll swing those feet around to the front. So you have a seat on your mat. And scooting forward towards the front of your space, feel free to lower all the way down onto your back. You might bring those knees with you and towards the chest. You can do a few egg beaters with those knees. So the knees draw out to the sides and then in towards one another. A little more movement through those hips. Try going both directions a few times with those circles. And then slowly extending those legs all the way out in front of you. Maybe bringing those feet a little wider than those hips. Feel free to bring those arms out along the sides, palms facing up. You can even walk those shoulder blades a little closer together underneath the body. Feel free to close those eyes, or if those eyes are open, you might just find a spot on the ceiling to gaze at. Just giving yourself a few minutes here. Time for your body to absorb everything that it's just done. And also time for the mind to rest. Not trying to clear the mind, because that's near impossible. But maybe finding one thing that you can bring your focus back to when you find the mind drifting elsewhere. And that one thing can be anything from a quality of your breath, maybe the pace of your breath, or maybe you feel movement with the breath throughout the body. Maybe that one thing you focus on is where your body's touching the mat. Or maybe it's a certain thought or mantra. You might breathe in the word let and breathe out the word go. Using that one thing as an anchor to come back to when you notice the mind is elsewhere. And I'm going to leave you there. Take as much time as you need to. And I hope to see you next time. Namaste.